Hello, hello. Welcome to Elevenses with Lisa. I'm so happy you're here. I'm Lisa Louise Cooke, if you're new to the show, and say hi to all the fun people in the chat room. They are an awesome crowd, and they get here earlier and earlier because they love each other. So I love that they're all hanging out, and I'm getting better at jumping in the chat as well. I'm getting a little more organized around here. This is episode 14, and if you are happy that you're here, and you're happy that you're watching this on YouTube, then how about click the thumbs up under the video? You can't believe how much that helps. It tells YouTube that this is worth watching, and they actually tell other people who are looking for family history topics. I was going to show you my lovely teacup, and I was excited about that, and then I discovered there's a crack in it. I'm so sad. This is such a pretty cup. There's a crack in it. So Bill brought me a nice glass of water, and that's what I'm having today. But, you just have to roll with the flow. Today, I want to help you create videos. I'm excited about this. I know I keep harping on it, but I just think it's a critical, wonderful, compelling way to kind of draw your family in and get them interested in what you're doing. And it may not be really high on your list, but I'm hoping today that we can kind of change that up a little bit and show you some of the possibilities and help you really have an impact on your family and see how you can share what you're finding in a way that they can digest. That just harks all the way back to one of our past episodes about saving your research from destruction. And we have to be able to share the legacy in a way that really is meaningful to the next generation so that they will preserve it. They may not add to your genealogy research, but that's okay. We want it preserved. We want it handed down for generations to come. So in last week's episode of Elevenses with Lisa, I showed you a video. It was just a short video I had created for Doris. She had emailed me a wonderful research story about her family history and some of the genealogy research that she was doing. And she sent me a couple of photos and some documents. And I think some of you were inspired by just seeing how kind of brief but compelling a video like that can be. Well, this week we are going to hear from Kathy Nielsen. Now, she is a children's librarian in Monterey, California. She's a genealogist, and she's a new grandma, so congratulations to Kathy. And we're going to talk to her about her experience in creating short family history story videos. And you're going to get to see one that she created. I think that in hearing her experience, that's going to give you an overview of kind of what's involved and how really doable this is. So without further ado, let's chat with Kathy. Well, my guest is somebody that I think I met first at the Southern California Genealogical Jamboree Conference. She's nodding her head yes, and from there, our paths crossed a couple of times. Her name is Kathy Nielsen, and Kathy, thank you so much for joining me here on the show.
Oh, it is my pleasure.
You said you've been watching Elevenses with Lisa, is that right?
I have. I've loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I get my teacup out, and it's really fun, Lisa. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, you bet. And thank you, because I'm always encouraging people on the show to send in what they're working on. And that's exactly what you did. But before we get into that, which was a video, so everybody knows we're going to talk about video today, tell us a little bit. I want folks to get to know you because, we've all been visiting in the chat on the show each week, which is so fun. Everybody's so nice. But I want them to know a little bit about you and maybe how long you've been working on your own family history.
Well, my mom was very, very into family history, and she always wanted to bring me into it. I am a librarian. I work in a public library, and she always thought, and I was a children's librarian. So my mother said, "You're a storyteller, you're an historian, and you're a librarian. You will love this." And I was raising children and working, and didn't have a chance to get into this. So, and I'm sorry, because when she passed away, there were so many questions I could have asked, but she did leave me the beginnings of a family history. And when I semi-retired, I got into it, and have loved it ever since. And that was probably in about 2011. So I've only been really involved for about 9 years, but what a journey it's been. I've just had so much fun with it.
Oh, I bet. Now, is your mom, did she leave you her materials? Had she been doing it for quite some time?
She did. And lots of pictures and lots of photos. She always wanted to become a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And in her search, she found that we were indeed loyalists. So she always chuckled about that. But maybe there's still a possibility. I've been doing exploring on that.
It's funny because I think a lot of us, of course, come to genealogy a little bit later in our lives, and people will say, well, how come young people aren't interested? I don't think it's a lack of interest. I think it's just life, right? Life is so busy. I felt like I was always tucking it in the corners around, taking kids to cheerleading practice and whatever it was that they were doing. But it's awfully nice for us to be able to really dig into it now, like you said. And you've been creating videos. And when you emailed me, you sent me this wonderful video that you made. And you called it 4 Generations, 5 Countries. So where did this idea come from?
Well, my husband is Australian, and we have made several trips back to his homeland. And we've had our last trip in 2018, we did make an attempt to make another trip this year, and we got as far as New Zealand and then came home because of the pandemic. But in 2018, we made a trip with my husband, both of our adult children, my sister-in-law, and her son to attend a family reunion. And I did a lot of research while I was over there. And when I came back, I wrote it all up. And I thought, this is an amazing story. My husband's family made the trip from Denmark. His great-grandfather went to Scotland and then to New Zealand. His grandfather went to Australia, and then his family moved to America. And I thought, this is an amazing story. I want to share it. And I want to send the photos and the information that I gathered back to his family. So I put it together and I wrote the story, 4 pages. And I was very proud of myself. And I thought, oh, this script is great. But I soon found that was way too long, and I had to work with that a little bit.
Well, before we go any further, let's share with the audience 4 Generations, 5 Countries. Let's take a look.
Okay. I have fond memories of tow-headed cousins, hot valley summers, Swedish meatballs, my grandmother's warm apple pie, the sound of crickets, and great aunts and uncles sitting in lawn chairs sharing stories in their mother tongue. I was raised in the midst of a large Swedish family. My cousins lived in small towns stretching from Turlock to Kingsburg. I lived in the suburbs of the East Bay and delighted in visiting my San Joaquin Valley family. My family immigrated to California 4 generations ago and put down roots. Bob does not have the same sense of family as I do. His family lives nearly 8,000 miles away in Australia and New Zealand. His ancestors made their way from Denmark to Scotland to New Zealand to Australia to America. He does not have the same sense of place, of 4 generations of family living in one country as I do. So apart from immediate family, he has been separated from his tribe. My family's story is one of finding its place in California. Bob's family story is one of separation, of moving on, always searching for a better life. So in February 2018, Bob and I, our 2 adult children, Bob's sister and our nephew, made a trip to Bob's homeland to attend a family reunion. This would be an opportunity to share with our children their dad's story and his roots. We visited the houses where my husband lived, the schools he attended. He entertained us with stories of his childhood, the magpie that attacked him one morning on his way to school, the frilled lizard who bit his toe when he was hiking barefoot in the bush, the time he ran home to share with his mother that he could now read.
We connected with the descendants of his Danish great-grandfather and his New Zealand great-aunts and uncles. And so 50 cousins from Wellington, Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, Canberra, and Melbourne arrived to honor the Nielsen family and Bob's remaining uncle. 4 generations and 5 countries later, our California family connected with his family, the family that Bob had said goodbye to nearly 60 years ago. Yes, my husband is now truly an American citizen. He has lost his accent and has spent most of his life in America. But he is still an Australian, and we delighted in hearing that accent return. Part of my husband will always be Australian, and part will remain American. I think that that is the bittersweet situation for all immigrants. We were pleased to join him on this journey, and in the process, his family became our family. But maybe it was that way all along.
Oh, Kathy, I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm sure everybody's just like mesmerized and excited about the possibility of maybe telling their own story. We all know we have some that we could pull from. You've really made it happen. And one of the things that struck me when I watched the video is that your opening is so effective. And it reminds me a bit of the Where I'm From poem. We've talked about it on the Genealogy Gems podcast. It has kind of that same cadence and feel to it. I don't know if that's what motivated you. Was it? Tell us about that.
Exactly. That's really wonderful. Yes, I did the Where I'm From poem. I have used it in a lot of different ways since I'm so pleased that I did that. I've been putting together a book of stories of my life, and I'm going to use that at the beginning. But that was about me. So this was about my husband. But what I found was that when I wrote my 4 pages, that was way too long. Yeah. And actually, I had traveled to Sweden a few years prior, which is my history, and I had put together an hour video with a similar kind of long script, and I wanted to do that for my Swedish relatives. And I found that an hour is just way too long. You lose the interest of your group. I mean, they may do it because they love you and they want the information, but it is too long. So that was something that I really had to work with, and the poetry of that poem really did help me put this together. But what happened is, as I worked on this 4-page thing, I realized that this is really even too long, that I really need to keep this to about 3 or 4 minutes, like Lisa, like your videos have been.
Yeah.
Because then there's a lot of smash, and then there's the opportunity to talk about it with those that are interested. And I wanted to do this one for the reunion that we just went to in March. And I wanted to share that with the New Zealand relatives. We didn't get to Australia because my daughter said, Mom and Dad, I think you ought to come home. This was the middle of March. And so we cut off our New Zealand part of the trip. But we did get our Australia part of the trip, but we did get to New Zealand, and I was able to share it with at our reunion there.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you're touching on something that's so important. I know it's something I preach a lot, which is we have to keep our audience in mind. And while if your audience were all genealogists, they'd probably be fascinated in every little detail, and they would sit there for an hour. But our family, who are not genealogists, they're used to video entertainment, right? And what you're really talking about is something that grabs their attention, brings them in, touches them emotionally, conveys an essence of a story, but doesn't try to tell 10 stories. Yeah. It focuses on one, and that's what you did, I think, so beautifully. Yeah, and I love that. And I think the Where I'm From, and I'll have a link in the show notes for this show so that people know what we're talking about and can listen to that podcast episode. I think it's a wonderful catalyst to kind of help if you're struggling with a story. you used it very effectively because, in a sense, you started with yourself, in a sense, talking about, this is my perspective, but that's not the same situation for everybody. And then you went on to your husband's family and what you learned there.
One of the things I learned is that you need to have a hook.
Yes.
Something that a punch line. And by just going through a chronological outline of the journey of my husband's family, didn't quite do it. Mm-hmm. And I learned this from the conference that I went to, that you should have some kind of emotional hook. And I thought, my goodness, why am I so fascinated with my husband's story? How is it different than mine? And why have I pursued it so relentlessly? I must say, just as an aside, I was always interested in the country, Australia. And in 5th grade, I did a report on Australia. And then I went and got some parakeets, some budgerries, which are, of course, from Australia. And lo and behold, my fascination turned into my husband, and I met him in college, and he was from Australia, and I think that continued that fascination with the country. So when I got into his family story, I was fascinated, and I realized that it was such a contrast to my own story, and I thought, aha, that's the hook. Sharing my background and the contrast of my husband's, the settling in California versus the wandering and looking for and searching for a better life.
I love that. I love the approach that you took. I totally agree with the hook. And sometimes we find that if we try to tell that story chronologically, the hook might be a third of the way in. Sometimes it's just flipping a little something to pull them in and then going back and getting into the stream of the story. It kind of depends on the story. And I know that you did a lot of your own homework. You've been doing some education when it comes to how to create videos. And you mentioned in your email that you went to the Story Center in Berkeley, and that was a course on this. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing to learn these techniques.
Well, I am a public librarian, and our library in Monterey has been very involved in recording the stories of the residents of Monterey. Oh, wonderful. And we have invited people to come in, we videotape them, and we have are keeping a collection. We've also invited people to bring in the photos that their families have of the city of Monterey. So my director asked me if I'd be interested in taking a 3-day conference in Berkeley, led by a group called Story Center, which you might want to explore. They do workshops all over the country, a nonprofit. And I went up there for 3 days and interacted, and I learned some tips. We used the video program, WeVideo, which is pretty sophisticated. I think that when I start to do things more on my own, I will use something that might be a little easier. But it gave me some editing skills. It helped me with the microphone, the pacing, some of the techniques that you can use. One of the things that they told me when I came, they asked us to come with our photos and a potential script. So I came with my 4 pages and my photos. And they looked at it and said, I really think you need to have more of a message, and you need to really cut it back. And you don't really need quite so many photos, because I really had worked on bringing that together. So my first thought was, oh my goodness, I put so much time into this before. But as I started to rewrite it, I realized that I could pull out the things that were really important, and that I wouldn't lose anyone in the process. Sometimes things that are interesting to us are not necessarily interesting to a wider audience. So I was able to really shorten it and make it a little bit more powerful. One of the things that they asked us to do is to practice reading it, and how important that is, your pacing. And not to worry about, at this particular conference, they said not to worry about the photos. Work on your script and get the pacing right, and then you can work with your photos to fit into your script. So I did work on that. I was, I did have I did have my script, and I did have my audio, So it's a matter of layers. You have your audio, and then you put in your, if you're doing music, I did not do music, but that certainly is a possibility too. You have your audio, vocals, you have your music, and then you start to put in your graphics or your pictures. And so once I had my first level in there, I started to put my pictures, and I learned about the Ken Burns effect, and zooming in and zooming out, and really extending the length of time that a picture might be on the screen. And in my first video that I did that was an hour, I was very static. I had a picture, my script, next picture. There wasn't variety. I think that adding that zooming in and zooming out and actually going across the picture really makes it so much more professional. And I had fun with that. And then I had fun with just the whole reading my script. I am a storyteller, so that was a little easier for me. So I think it was a wonderful 3 days. I learned from everyone. There were a wide range of subjects, and then we had a final showing of all of our pieces that we put together, and it was really a wonderful experience. So I brought this back to the library. I shared it with the library. I did some work, staff work, on how to do it, and then I worked with the community as well for some wonderful videos that came out of that project. We're now currently collecting COVID stories.
Oh, right.
So that's the latest, although the library is closed, as many of your libraries are right now.
Exactly. Well, you've touched on a lot of important points. Of course, it's tempting to want to go straight to the content, like the pictures or videos or whatever you have. But in reality, it's the story. And I like to outline it and then try to flesh it a little bit. And you said it's something that's hard to convey to people, but really good storytelling and writing a book, anything like that, creating a video, it's sometimes what you leave out is more important than what you leave in. It's the editing, right? The editor has so much control. And that's, again, where I think keeping our audience in mind, what will they want, and in what way we want to share it. So it's maybe something that you're going to show at a big family reunion could maybe be a little longer, but if you want to put it on social media, you got to keep it shorter and attention grabbing and all those things. So lots of different things to consider in that respect. I like the fact that you wrote the script and rehearsed it. I do that as well. The video that I showed in a previous episode of the show that Doris sent her family story, I read it through, thought I had it, and I re-recorded it again. It's always better the second time, but that pacing, like you said, will help dictate for us kind of where the pictures go. And I find that the transitions, the animations, and every program has a little different toolbox of those things, can really help bring out the emotion of the story too. It can help you guide your viewer to what really matters, and then what transition and move that story forward. And I saw that in the video that you created. It sounds like then you did a lot of preparation before. Yeah. So give folks an idea. You have a video that's just under 4 minutes. How much time do you think you spent in prep? Recording stuff, writing stuff, editing things, and how much time do you think you actually spent at the program itself, creating the video and producing it?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the fact that I wrote my first one up, which took some time, certainly an hour or so, maybe 2 hours, and then I condensed it, which would be another maybe hour working on that. And then so we're looking at a couple of hours at least for the script, maybe even 3. And then I'm going into my genealogy software to get the information and to get dates and just confirming with that. And thank you, Lisa, for always reminding us to have our genealogy software. And then I needed to go in and find the photos, but you don't actually, until you start to hear yourself on that script, you're not quite sure which photos you're going to use or how you're going to use them. And that was interesting to me. So I had probably 20 photos, maybe even more. And then as I listened to myself, and that took time to compile because my photos aren't as organized as they should be. So that's another hour, maybe half an hour. And then listening to my script and deciding which photos were most appropriate. And then seeing that I didn't have photos in some spots. And then I needed to go looking for those photos. Like, for example, I wanted a photo of just an introduction to Australia, and I had the ferry boat in Sydney Harbor. Well, I didn't have that initially, so I needed to go looking for that. So as you get into your script, you realize where your holes are and what you need to look for. I needed to look for the one of the four of us, are my immediate family. So that takes a little longer. So I would say easily 2 hours on the script, maybe 3, depending how much time you want to put into that. And then at least a half an hour to an hour on the photos. And then learning a new program and figuring out how to, we worked 3 days on this actually, but then a lot of that was learning and sharing. So when I finally put it all together, I had to learn the program, and I had to learn how to do the layers and how to edit things out and mistakes and go back in. So that is the learning curve from that is amazing, and I a number of hours learning that. We use the program WeVideo, which is a really excellent program, but it is pretty sophisticated. So I think for my next one, I'm going to need to learn something that might be a little easier for me, because I did have some help with that program.
Was that something you were using on your home computer, or were you using it at the workshop?
I was using it at the workshop, and then I had access to it at home, and I had access to it at the library as well, because we were working with people who were also being introduced to that program. Maybe, QuickTime, maybe I need to learn QuickTime. I am open to exploring other options, because once you've learned the basic tools, it will be a lot easier to learn the next program.
And you know which tools you're looking for. It's just a matter of where they are in that particular program that you're working with. Exactly. And you mentioned having the holes, and I think that's a great point too, is you're going through, you've got the script, you start putting in the content, and sometimes you can fill those holes with things that aren't even your photos. Sometimes it's public domain images. We're going to have lots of resources we're going to be talking about here on the show. And also I noticed that you didn't have home movies. And of course, that's something that you could if you had them, but you proved the point that you absolutely do not have to have home movies to have and create a film that can move and have motion and is very interactive, even though they are static photos.
You are so right. That would have been a whole nother learning curve. And we do have home videos, but I haven't learned how really to edit those. So that is on my to-do list.
Oh, good, because we're going to do that here.
Wonderful.
Well, I've loved talking with you about this. I'm so pleased that you shared it with us all. Any parting words? Because we're going to be talking about some of the real specific how-tos through this episode and other episodes. And I'm interested to know what encouragement that you can give folks, knowing that there's a bit of an investment of time and effort. But how has the experience overall been for you?
Well, it's just been wonderful to share this with the family, and I've just gotten amazing response from them. And it is a creative process. It is something to learn, but it is well worth the effort. And if you have a reunion coming up, or if you want to send a gift, a Christmas gift, a holiday gift off to people, this is a perfect little gift. So I recommend roll up your sleeves and get into it. And it's just a way to share your family's history with your family. And they will like it. They will love it.
Absolutely. I'm sure your family loved yours. We loved it. Kathy Nielsen, thank you so much for joining me here on the show. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Lisa. It was my pleasure.
Oh, Kathy, such a delight, wasn't she? And I was pleased to find out that we are both daughters of the San Joaquin Valley. That's where I was born as well. Woven into that conversation was really a workflow, a video creation workflow that I've been teaching for several years. And so let's go back over some of the bullet points and flesh some of these out so that you'll have a process that you can follow as well. So we're going to head over here and talk a little bit about video creation and family history story videos. I like that idea of the story videos. We are really going to focus in on story. First thing you have to do, Kathy mentioned this, is select the story, and that's probably your biggest challenge. When doing that, you want to try to create a video that focuses on one story. And that was something that Kathy mentioned. It's certainly something that I try to encourage my students to do. It's so easy. We know so many great stories as genealogists, and we've seen, and these families are interconnected, and there's all these other stories that kind of weave into it, and it gets big and overwhelming fast. I think that's often the reason why people don't finish a project. And I asked the question in chat, how many of you have tried this and tried to create some kind of a video? And one person said, well, yeah, I did, but I didn't finish it. I can appreciate that because it's often the story that just is difficult to corral. We have to find out where will it begin and where will it end? And we have to accept the fact that it's not going to be the complete story. I like to think of it actually as more like chapters, right? Just a selection in time from that story that kind of gets to the heart and has a purpose and a meaning. And so we want to focus on one story when we want to grab the viewer's attention. So as you're outlining your story, you want to ask yourself, why would this matter to them? And think a lot about who your audience is. Is your audience going to be, your family? Is it going to be friends? Is it going to be social media? Is it going to be a family reunion with lots of family you don't even know? That makes such a big difference. And we want to look at something, hopefully, that may touch them emotionally. We may not get to create a video for every story that we have, clearly. So when we take the time to create one, we want people to connect with it emotionally, whether they're laughing, they're crying, they're empathetic, they're a little amazed or stunned or shocked. That's okay. We want them to get as close to the feelings of the story as it unfolded as we can. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the things that Kathy said, where did I get Nancy? Kathy said, ask yourself, why am I so fascinated with this story? If you're fascinated with the story, there's probably some element. There's something that's connecting with you emotionally. And if you can identify what that key thing is, what was it about it, then that's where you can kind of use that as your hook and your way to focus in and make sure that things support that element. We can't accomplish everything in every video. So we're trying to accomplish a connection with our viewer. And as we talked about with Savior Research from Destruction in our past episodes here on the show, we want to engage our family and our audience so that they feel connected and that this is part of their legacy as well. So let's just talk about a couple of different story examples. Again, chapters in the life of a particular person or a family or an event versus the entire story, which just cannot be told in a short enough period of time. So one idea of a story might be just how a couple met and their marriage. What was it that connected them and then you found the marriage? And that could be a short little video. How about an ancestor's military career? I used this topic actually to create a book that I'm turning into a little video. It's a very short little coffee table book, and it's just about my husband's father's military career. And it was challenging. I had to really think about, where was this thing going to pick up? Where is it going to start? And where is it going to end? And it doesn't have to be the day he was born, clearly. Sometimes we pick up at a moment that's actually very engaging, and you want to know, how did he get there? And then you back up a little bit and you bring them back to that place in the video. How about why a family immigrated to America? This was one that I did early on for my Sporowski family. And again, it was challenging because there were so many moving parts. I wanted to tell everything. I knew all these pieces. And non-genealogists in our family just don't have an interest in every single piece. So we don't need to include everything. We want to be a storyteller. So here's 3 important questions that you could ask yourself. First of all, who's going to be watching the video? I think it was John who mentioned in the chat, he was asking about distribution. Okay, well, we're going to create this. Who's going to see it? Well, that's a good question. And that's something that we want to actually think about when we're selecting the story and writing the script. Is it friends? Is it family? How old are they? Are they interested in genealogy? All of these factors help us then mold the story to meet the needs of that type of a viewer. So it might be that you want, and this is, I think, one that is easy to start with, how about a short video targeted on social media, but hopefully to grab the attention of these other relatives you're friends with? Whether, let's say, you're on Facebook and you want to say, I'm going to put it out there and just kind of share with everybody a little story of something I found, but I really want my family to spark up and go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Or who was that? Or, and solicit their comments. So maybe social media is one of the first and simplest ways to share a video. And you might actually get people, and I've had this happen, start contributing stories back. It's amazing how just a couple of pictures, a particular story, a clip from an old home movie will spark memories, and people will come out of the woodwork. And what a wonderful way to retrieve those from your family. Also, where will they watch? So this is key too, particularly when you're thinking about how you're going to produce your video. Is it going to be shown online? Is it on social media? It might have to be a special formats, different sizes fit different social media platforms better. Are you going to try to email it? If you are, we need to keep it really short and a small file so that it doesn't overwhelm or have a method in order to put it in Dropbox and share that link. Is it going to be offline? You want to burn it to a DVD. Maybe you want to share this with people who do not spend any time on social media or online. Getting this onto a DVD will be really critical. How long would they watch? So thinking about who your audience is, how long do you really think that they will, what's their attention span? That's the big question. So what I recommend for social media is 1 minute. Now, Facebook will probably start messaging you and saying, well, we really like long videos. Well, sure, Facebook does, because they want you to have your viewers stay on there and watch forever. But in reality, your audience, the people who it matters to that they watch this, they may not have more than about a minute's, attention span for this. And so it could be that simple, just a minute. I think 3 minutes is probably about the most I would do probably initially on social media until you kind of gauge the response. If you want to put it on your website, if you have a family history blog, which of course I encourage you to have, if you want to put it on YouTube, then again, maybe 3 to 5 minutes would be a good time frame. You're not asking too much from your viewer, but you are giving yourself enough time to tell a story. In watching Kathy's, it seemed complete, but it wasn't that long. It was about 3 minutes or so. If you're going to get together at a family gathering, maybe 10 minutes would be good. Again, it really depends on who they are, what their interest and understanding of genealogy might be, and of course, what the setting is to make sure that, if it's going to be longer, it better be compelling, right? So you want to make sure you keep them engaged. And that brings us to writing your script, the next step in that process. So I like to outline. So I will start with 12 bullet points, and I should be able to tell the basic story in those 12. I can certainly flesh things in between, but if you find yourself with, you've got 25 points, I don't know what to do, you're not going to get a short video out of that. So try and outline it if you're struggling a little bit with your first one to kind of just keep it contained into a manageable size, and I think that will help you a lot. And then literally write the script. And that's what I have done for the first couple. If I'm going to narrate a video, if I'm going to read it like I did on Doris's video, I wrote every single word down as a script. And it was a great process because it, as I said, it's all about editing. So it really got me thinking about, I don't really need this. Or, oh, well, that makes sense to them if I didn't tell them this other thing. So writing it, and then reading it out loud to yourself helps a lot. When it comes to recording it, you want to practice. I have found when I will do certain segments on my podcast, I'll write a script and I'm reading something and it's just not quite got the feel I want it to have. I'll redo it and it's always better the second time. It never hurts if you have a couple of extra minutes, record it, take a pause, go take a break, come back, record it again. You'll be amazed how much better it is. So practice reading your script. Pacing, as Kathy mentioned, is so important. A pause, right? I remember one time Bill was watching me do a presentation and he's like, I know how excited you are. I know how much you want them to hear all this information. But you need to pause. You need to give them a chance to hang on your next word, to think for a moment about what you just said. What does that mean? And to draw them in. And also a variation in pacing keeps the excitement. It means, hey, you don't know where I'm going with this, right? That's what you're telling the viewer. You better stick with me because I'm taking you on a journey. I'm taking you on a ride. And it might be fast on some points and it might slow way down. And you're going to have something to think about. Pacing makes such a difference. And record your script a few times. Edit it as you need to. And in fact, there are many times I will record it. I'll think, this script is awesome. And then you record it and you go back and listen to it and you say, I need to clip that out. So I will edit it out. Now you can do the audio recording in many of the programs, particularly on the software side. If you get a video editing tool that's a software program, then you'll be able to do it and have lots of control. You can also record on your phone. You could record on a free audio program like Audacity. But typically I like to record within the program if I can. But if you just use one of the free apps, you're not going to have as much control or ability to edit. So that's something to think about, how many videos you're going to be wanting to make and what kind of flexibility and control that you want. We'll talk about the programs in just a second. First, you got to collect the content. You got stuff to find. You've got pictures. You've got videos. So you're going to, as Kathy said, write the script and maybe even record it and play it back, and the pictures will start to come to mind. And you'll start looking through your own collection and grabbing them. You're going to find you have blank spots, stuff that you don't have imagery for. So you want to be looking online for public domain images, things that are in the public domain. You don't have to worry about copyright. If you are on the Genealogy Gems newsletter list, and I hope you are, because this week I gave you a fantastic tool for historical imagery that's absolutely free to use. Copyright free, public domain. It's at the Library of Congress. So check that out. And in the show notes for this episode on my website, which I'll be publishing tonight, I will have a link to that resource so that you can try that. Internet Archive, archive.org, is also another great place, not only to get images, but like the little Ellis Island video that you see there on the screen, that came from Internet Archive. You can also Google for free images. I talk a lot about that in my book, and there's a way to filter down by copyright. If you find something you just think, I have to get this picture in this video, and you're not sure about who owns the copyright, contact the website owner where you found the image and ask. Many libraries and archives, they just want a small credit, just something that says this is courtesy of their collection. And home movies. You might have home movies. If you're like me, you've had lots of different formats of movies sitting in your closet. This project would be a great opportunity for you to get those digitized. The sooner the better. Formats keep changing. So get them digitized as soon as you can. I think it's critical. We focus so much on photos, but if you have anything on VHS, when your kids were growing up, if you've got 8 millimeters, there were so many different formats in between. I use Larson Digital, and you can go to larsondigital.com/Lisa. They have discounts there that are only for you guys. So try them out. That's who's been digitizing mine. And I tell you, I've been blown away, not only at the quality, how fast they're getting them back to me, but I get them back in a DVD. So if I have family who'd like to look at them, but they don't want to mess with it online, they can watch the DVDs, but you also get these wonderful MP4 digital video files. And we'll talk in a few more moments about cutting those into clips. You can do that with your video editor, and wow, that makes such a difference. I want to show you an example of how I've done that. But you're going to need a video editing tool. And so there's several different types. There's mobile apps that you can use to create video. There are web-based tools where you use their website. WeVideo, the one that Kathy mentioned, that's exactly what that is. And there's software that you can download to your computer. You pay for it once, you own it, and it has all the bells and whistles. Video programs make two different types of videos. There's slideshow type, like what Kathy did, and then there's really movie video type, where it's video that you've shot, home movies. It might incorporate some imagery, but you want a kind of more produced looking video. Some of the tools that I have used in the past, I still use. Adobe Spark would be an example of a mobile app video editor. And you can use a free version just like you can with Animoto. Oftentimes you'll get a little watermark on it that will say the brand of the company that you're using. You can pay for a short subscription to be able to eliminate that and get a lot more flexibility with using the program. Animoto has changed, actually. I think they've gone to a free format. The challenge with Animoto right now is they've gone to a very commercially based templates. So all these beautiful templates that we used to get, they're just not there anymore. If you had them before, you probably still have them, but they're very much focused on the business community. So I'm not using that as much anymore. The one I use is in red, and that's Camtasia. Many of you asked me, how are you making these videos that you're putting in the presentations and you're showing on the show? I do them in Camtasia. It's a bigger financial investment, but I can use it for everything. Cutting up the home movies that come back in the digital format, creating videos, making it's limitless, and it's got so many cool tools. If you are in education, if you're a student, they have great discounts as well. Of course, there's iMovie on Mac, which is free. I think that's still around. I know that Movie Maker has come off of Windows. WeVideo, I looked into that, the one that Kathy mentioned. It's about $100 a year, and you can certainly Google for more options. I'll touch a moment on the one that I'm using because I know that you guys have asked about that. It is software. So I like that. I am a control freak. I want to own it. I want to download it one time. And I, more than anything, don't want it to be this ongoing forever subscription. So Camtasia takes care of that. It seems like more money up front, but I think as much as I use it, I make little videos in place of birthday cards and anniversary cards. I mean, people love it. So I use it all the time for different things. And you can create the movie style. You can also do the slideshow style. Gives you full control of the editing. There are some discounts available depending on your situation. You can make videos of any length, no watermarks. You can edit all of your audio. You can reduce the noise in the audio. I mean, it's got some really nice tools. The transitions, the editing, all that's done by you, but they have lots of templates. So many things are pre-created for you so that you can drop things in and make it look wonderful and professional. If you want to check it out, I'd love it if you use our link. It helps support this free show. It's tinyurl.com/cam11ses. And that'll take you to our page for Camtasia if you decide you want to buy it. I love it. I've used it probably about 12 years. And in fact, they interviewed me several years ago because they saw that I was using it for Genealogy Gems. And I did a little interview video with them. Really nice people, nice company. You'll want to get some music in there. Now, Kathy did not have music in her video, and that's fine. I think that was very effective because she was really the voice of it. She was the storyteller. But you may want music. It can help kind of soften it and add to the emotion. Here's a little clip from a home movie I just got digitized. It doesn't look like a whole lot, and I'll show you in a moment how I cut it up using Camtasia, told a story, and added music and the difference that music makes. If you have a tool like Camtasia, it's going to have music in it, as many of the mobile apps do. Those are already cleared for copyright, so you don't have to worry about that. YouTube also has copyright-free music in their Creator Studio, And the key thing is, if you upload a song and you want to put your video somewhere online, you just got to make sure that you have the rights to use that song. So here's this video that my grandmother shot years and years, I think back in the 1950s. One of you guys could probably tell from the car that's in the video too, but he worked the railroad for 50 years. And I cut this up in Camtasia, added some music, and here's the story I was able to tell. As you can see, my grandpa was a train conductor, and he worked the railroad, and I just wanted to convey that feel. He was just hardworking. He was no nonsense, and it doesn't have to tell a really detailed story, right? This is actually just a story, actually turning my grandmother's home movies into a bit of a story. Again, I made that in Camtasia. Those kinds of programs, they do take longer to learn. But if you think, there's so many ways you can use video, I think that you might find if you enjoy it, that would be worth it. You might want to start in a simple free app where you drag and drop stuff. Simple. And then if you get the feel for it and people start responding, then something like Camtasia might really be the one that you want to use. I have additional resources for you in addition to what we've been talking about in the book. If you're interested in, you want to be able to have a place to host your videos, YouTube is a great place to do that. You can control the privacy of it. And I have a whole chapter in the book about that. I know lots of you guys have the Genealogist Google Toolbox book, so check out the YouTube chapter. And I know many of you also are Genealogy Gems premium members. So if you're a premium member, log in at my website, genealogygems.com, and under premium, go to premium videos and click story. And there you're going to find a 3-part video series called Video Magic. This was something I debuted at Roots Tech a couple years ago, and it's much more in detail. Gosh, I can't believe this hour is almost over. But I talk a lot about the mobile apps, using Camtasia, really fleshing out the story. And I walk you through step by step how I fleshed out one particular immigration story that I did. And we can talk more about this here on Elevenses with Lisa, so we can get into more detail. In fact, I was thinking it might be kind of fun to show you the video I just showed you, how I would create that in Camtasia and how that would be created in something like Adobe Spark. And you'll be able to see the difference. So we'll do that coming up shortly. Follow me on Instagram. If you haven't tried Instagram, it's a nice, fun place to be, and a lot different than Facebook. And I share lots of videos and tips there as well. So there are lots of ways to tell your story. And to wrap this up, I just want to mention that in episode 185 of the Genealogy Gems podcast, that's where George Ella Lyon, the poet from Kentucky, she shared her Where I'm From poem. And that was kind of the foundation that Kathy used and so many people have before. I encouraged people at that time to send me their version of their poems. Try the poem is a wonderful catalyst to create your first story. And a gentleman named Tom Boyer did just that. He sent me his poem. And so I asked him, okay, go find me a picture for each piece of the poem. And I made a video, and I want to show you how that turned out.
Home means Nevada. Home means the hills. Home means the sage and the pines. Nevada state song. I'm from the indescribable rain-fresh smell of Nevada sagebrush out towards Pyramid Lake. Land of blue-bellied lizards basking in the sun and a donkey named Bambi. Riding a yellow school bus 20 miles each way, stopping at the Mustang River Ranch to get my buddy. Mom would never let me play at his house. I'm from a diesel submarine and a submerged trip off Vietnam. 80 shipmates, a dozen or so I remember today. And another 20 plus years as a Navy Reserve officer. Hundreds of shipmates, Seabees. Few of them I can remember. I'm from my high school sweetheart's family. A father-in-law I never knew. A mother-in-law who was amazingly upbeat regardless of the hand she was dealt. 3 sisters-in-law who were more like daughters. And a brother-in-law taken from us much too early. Cancer. Finally, I'm from my own clan. Parents of the greatest generation who lived a depression and a world war. Keepers of the American dream. An older sister to keep me in line, a younger brother to pester. Extended family that includes yet another brother-in-law taken from us much too early. Cancer. 2 of my own and their 4 offspring. Keepers of where I'm from. Tom Boyer in Olympia, Washington. Thanks a lot.
I tear up every time I see that video. Thank you so much to Tom Boyer for sharing. I hope you feel excited about this, my friends. It's doable. Just do one. Remember, one day at a time. One story. How about a Where I'm From poem? And see, maybe it should be your story. You guys have been busy. I will go through chat afterward. And of course, I've been adding the downloadable chat to the show notes page, and I'll have answers for anything that you guys asked about along the way. I want to mention before we wrap up, I just got an email from MyHeritage. And so they wanted to offer Genealogy, Gems, and Elevenses with Lisa's viewers a DNA special. So I think this is starting tomorrow. And I'll put out an email and I'll put it on the show notes page. They're going to have, if you're looking for a DNA test, they're going to do, instead of $79, it's $49 per test. And if you buy 2, there's free shipping. So that was something they just told me about. I wanted to tell you about as well. And that'll be coming out in the newsletter. Well, for goodness sakes, what's on my face? Did you see that? Yeah. I started with the cracked teacup and I ended up with a video on my face, but that's okay. Thank you so much for joining me. This weekend is Independence Day, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July with your family here in the U.S. And it's a good place to be free. And I hope that if you enjoyed this video that you will, if you're watching on YouTube after the fact, if you leave a comment down below in the comment section, if you're watching on the website, we have a comment section down there too. And I'll have all the resources and all the notes for everything for you there. I will put the link in the description of this video here on YouTube as soon as we get done. My friends, it's always wonderful, wonderful to spend this morning with you. And I thank you so much for watching, friend. I'll talk to you soon.